Welcome back to the channel. My name is Tronage, and today we're going to be talking about a camera from Caddx that I think is pretty much an unbeatable price for the features that you're going to get. Stick around. I don't know if this is like a diamond in the rough. I don't know if this is just a fortunate, set of pricing and stuff like that. But essentially, there's two cameras I've been kind of looking at, and I think I may have found... in all honesty, I'm not sure exactly what's going to be in here, and I'll explain why. Originally, I was looking at the Caddx F2 camera. It looks like this. And I was going to be picking that up for Banggood, and it was like $17 or $18. And I was going to be fine and happy and good with that. And then I said, you know what, let me see if I can find something more local. Let me see if maybe that camera I can get locally. And after doing a couple searches, I ended up on Amazon with Amazon Prime shipping, a Caddx camera it was like $20. So it was like $2 more, but it was Prime shipping. So I figured it's going to come much faster than from Banggood, and it's only $2 more. And I don't think $2 worth of shipping on Banggood would make it arrive in 2 days. And the picture looked the same on the Amazon listing. However, it was listed as the Caddx S2. So I wasn't sure, because there is an S2 model and it's a different camera. So they have the picture of what looked like an F2, but the description said S2. If you look up the price of the S2 on GetFPV or on Race Day Quads, you'll see that it's like a $26, $27 camera. So if it turned out to be that camera, then hey, I'm saving a lot of money here because it's only 20 bucks. If it turns out to be the F2 camera, then I only paid $2 additional, but that was like my shipping cost. So it's going to be a surprise to either of us what's inside this box. I will say on the label on the back here, it does say Turbo Micro S2. So we'll see once we unbox it, and we'll talk about what's what. But if this ends up being the S2, then this is going to be a really good camera for a really cheap price, picking it up from Amazon, and it might be a really good find. And if it's still available for the price and you want to pick up one of these, I'd highly recommend, I'll put a link in the description below, that you grab it before they maybe raise the price, because for 20 bucks, this is a steal. So now the one thing I will point out is that when you're picking out a camera for your quad or whatever, there are a couple things you can keep in mind. This cameras come in different flavors. First of all, they come in PAL or NTSC. Both, typically NTSC is United States and PAL is usually abroad, as far as just the type of TV signal. Without getting into a lot of detail, it's just the way that the video is transmitted, kind of thing. Now, both will work on a quad in the United States and both will work on quads elsewhere and stuff. It's really just how the screen is set up, and you just make sure that when you're setting up your OSD, you pick whether it's PAL or NTSC in your beta flight, so that it knows where to put elements on the screen. And if it's PAL format, you end up with a bigger area to put things, sort of, I guess. The other thing to think about is whether you have 4:3 or 16:9 aspect ratio goggles. That plays into effect because some goggles will squish or crop or letterbox, and each goggle kind of handles signals that are non-native to it a little differently, like the Fat Shark HDOs. If you put a 4:3, they're a 4:3 native goggle. If you put a 4:3 signal to it, it looks perfect. If you put a 16:9 picture on it, it actually will stretch it vertically. So one of the cameras that I actually purchased was a 16:9 camera, and it was stretching in my Fat Shark goggles, and I forgot to consider that. So just something to keep aware of what you're going to look at. Now, the ones that I found on Amazon, this guy right here, they only have it in NTSC and they only have it as a 4:3 option. That's what you're going to get if you follow the link below. Anyway, so let's come on in. Let's look at this together and see what we got. All right, so here we go. We have our Caddx camera. And as I mentioned, we flip it over. It has some information on here. And it does have, it's saying that the lens is a Turbo Eye, so I'm not sure, because this has a 2.1 and a 2.5 option. Turbo Eye, I'm not sure what the millimeter on that is, but we'll check that out. It is an NTSC camera. Its power rating is going to be from 5 volts to 40 volts, and it is the Turbo Micro S2. All right, so let's crack this guy open, see what we got inside, and what we actually, if it is an S2 or an F2 or what we got. So we're going to cut the seal. Okay, Caddx information. It looks like it's a legit S2, which is very intriguing. And that's look at how nice this is. They actually included the OSD joystick. That's what this is an OSD joystick. So if you want to make changes to the camera settings itself, you know, you can go like up, up, down, down, left, right, BA select start. Comment below if you know what that is. Anyway, so we got that. That's awesome that that's included. I mean, the packaging on this is really nice. Really impressed with it. And this is the S2 model of the camera. It says Turbo S2 right on the back here. It has the connector for the to connect to your quad, as well to hook up your OSD joystick to it. It feels like it's a metal housing. I don't know. It does feel like metal. It doesn't feel like plastic. So that'll be nice. Let's look at the lens here. It says Caddx.US Turbo Eye. That's all it says on the lens itself. We also have the mounting bracket. It's pretty standard. Standard style mounting bracket. A little metal shaped one. Then we'll take the foam out and see what else we got. We got a lot of goodies in here. So we got a packet of goodies. And what we have in here, a couple things I can see. So we'll dump it all out. So what we have is the screws to mount this to the camera, like so. So the bracket would go on like such, and you'd run a screw in that side and a screw in that side. And they also gave you, that's what these smaller ones are here. So they gave you 4 of those screws, but you only need 2 at a time. So if you lose 2, you have backup. They also gave you 2 of these screws, which are actually the 2 screws that hold the back panel on. So if for whatever reason you lose those 2 screws, you have backups of those 2. And then you have your little wire harness, which is nice. And what they did is they have it set up so that you can do, because what a lot of cameras are doing is they have a 3-pin jack for your camera to hook up to your quad, and then a 2-pin jack for the OSD joystick. What they've done is they've combined the 3 and the 2, and instead of having it be 5, it's now 4 because it's sharing a common ground. So you can see here the black wire. For the black wire for the OSD is the same black wire over here in the ground for the part that hooks up to your quad. So you're going to have your power in, your ground, and your video signal, and then you're going to have your OSD joystick. And then with the OSD joystick, you're going to take this little extension wire, plug it in over here, like such, like that. And then you're going to plug this end into your joystick, like there. And now this you would set up for however you want to set up your settings on the camera. Usually it's like to turn on your white balance and to set up, you know, brightness, contrast, and whether you have wide dynamic range. I don't know. We'll go through, once we get it all hooked up, we'll go through what's actually in the OSD for this camera. But it's really awesome surprise that it comes with the joystick, so that right out of the box, you as the user can make any adjustments you want to this camera in addition to, you know, anything else you want to do with it. So that's really cool that they've included that. And then when you're all done, you just disconnect your joystick. Then you have this little pigtail just sitting there in case you want to use it later on. And then this is the part that would go to your flight controller. Some of them will have the jack to just plug this in right into your flight controller. If not, you just clip this off and you'll solder your wires up. I guess the next thing to do is let's get this wired up into something and see what we get. All right, so now what we're going to do, we're actually going to test this camera, see what it looks like, check out the OSD on it, and go through how to set it up and what settings are inside in case you guys are curious about that information. So before I get started though, I want to give a quick lesson on just how cameras and goggles work as far as their relationship to each other. Specifically, 4:3 aspect ratio and 16:9 aspect ratio. If you don't know, 4:3 aspect ratio means you're going to have a screen that's kind of square shaped. And a 16:9 ratio means you're going to have a screen that's more rectangular shaped. Now, that's all fine and good, and people have their preferences one way or the other. Where it comes into play that's important is also what your goggles display versus what your camera's shooting. The reason why that's important is because if you take a 4:3 camera and put it with a 4:3 goggle, everything looks great. Same thing, 16:9 camera, viewing it with a 16:9 goggle, looks great. The problem, or distortion I should say, comes in when you start mixing and matching. If you put a 16:9 camera and you view it with a 4:3 goggle, what will happen is the camera is doing a image like this, rectangular, but your goggle wants to make it a square, so it's going to actually stretch it up to make it square shaped. So what this means is everything's going to look a little stretched out vertically, and that can be a little disorienting for some people. Same thing for a 4:3 camera. If you take a 4:3 camera, which is a square, and you view it with a 16:9 goggle, it's going to want to stretch it out this way to make it into that rectangle. So everything's going to look stretched out horizontally. Now, if you want a quick test just to see if your camera and your goggle are on the same page, all you got to do is point your camera at something that's either round or square and look at it through your goggles. If they are matching, then the square should look like a square and a circle will look like a circle. If they don't match, then you'll have it, one will either be squashed or stretched. So it'll either be stretched this way or it'll be stretched this way. So the square will look like a rectangle this way or a rectangle this way, and your circle will turn into an oval this way or an oval this way. And it's really just a matter of figuring out which is which, and you can rectify that problem. But if you're fine with it, then leave it as is. I'm not telling you what to do, I'm just telling you the information. That being said, that's why on my head I have the Fat Shark HDOs, because the Caddx camera that I'm going to be testing here is a 4:3 camera, and this is a 4:3 goggle. Now, if it was a 16:9 camera, that's why I have my Omways here. These are the V1.5s or whatever. But these are a 16:9 goggle, so these would view any kind of a 16:9 camera view perfectly. So it's really just matching which one you have so that you get a good, clean picture. Okay. That being said, let me show you the hardware that we're going to be testing it with. I got my Twilight Quad here that I use. I call it that just because it's loaded up with a ton of LEDs. It's basically just for flying at twilight when it starts getting really dark. I got the Runcam Night Eagle 2 in here so that I can see pretty much in near darkness. Like it's crazy how dark it can be that I can actually still fly no problem. And that's why I put a ton of LEDs in here, because it just looks really cool from the outside. But anyway, all I did was I unplugged the camera from the quad and put it into this little extension that I made here that just has a double ender, so I can plug a male into a male. Plugged it into my camera like that, and then I have the little OSD joystick attached as well. For this first test, I'm going to leave the lens cap on because we're going to be just looking at the OSD stuff, and I don't want that distraction of a lot of background stuff, so I figured just leaving the lens cap on, we can look at just the text and read it easier. So let's get in it. So I'm going to plug in my battery.
Telemetry recovered.
And let's go in. Okay. So you can see here now we have two OSDs essentially displaying. We have the camera's native OSD displaying, and we have the Betaflight OSD displaying. So I have a switch on my transmitter to turn off my OSD. So I will do that now so we can see just the cameras. Now what we have here on the screen is we have in the bottom left corner, we have the time that the camera's been on. In the middle, we have where you'd put your call sign. It's just defaulted to Caddx.us. And in the bottom right corner, it has the voltages. And the reason why it's showing 5.1 volts is because I believe I'm running this camera off of a 5-volt regulator out of my flight controller on my Craft. So that's why you're seeing 5.1 volts. What's also intriguing is it's obviously able to see through the lens cap, because as I move my hands around, the lens cap is on, but you can see that motion. So it clearly, that's kind of neat, because the lens cap is just a black piece of plastic and somehow it can see through it, which is crazy. In fact, if I put my hand over the whole camera, yeah, now you can see. So that's interesting that it can like see through plastic. It's like an X-ray camera. Okay, so let's go into its native OSD. We'll talk about the display on the bottom in a moment. We'll just talk about the menus in the camera. So you click the button on the OSD joystick, and then you are presented with a bunch of options. And what I'm going to do is I'm not going to go through them. I don't really know what some of them do. I don't know what they stand for, some of the initials and stuff. So I'm just going to flip through them, and then you can take from it what you will and what it means and all that fun stuff. So I'm just going to flip through all the different settings so you can see what they do. And that's it. I went through all the menus and flipped through them. So that way you can see all the different menus and the options that are available and stuff. And you can play around with those things. There was a couple of things I recognized, a couple of things I didn't know really what they meant. But, you know, we'll see how that goes. The next thing let's talk about is this OSD across the bottom now. This is basically would be broadcasting without a on your video. So if you don't have a Betaflight OSD, a great thing you can use is you can use this as your OSD. You could put your call sign in the middle. You would know your flight time on the left if you plugged in and then just started flying. And in the bottom right, you could have your voltages. Now, this camera can support, I think, up to 40 volts. So you can put straight battery voltage to this camera, and it would read the battery voltage on the camera. So you would read your battery voltage on your OSD there, so you would know what your voltage is on your battery. Now, to change that, on the little OSD joystick, you hold down for 5 seconds. 2, 3. Oh, okay, it was quicker than that. And then here you have your FPV setup, where you can type in, you know, whatever you want to do for your call sign. So I can say, like, I want to clear it. Wait, why don't let me? There we go. So I can say clear, 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 clear. There we go. And then I can say and then you can say name on or off and the position it's going to be on. So it can be here, here. You can move it wherever you want to place it, which is kind of nifty. There's no like predefined. I'm just moving the joystick around, and you can pick where it's going to place that the OSD. So let's put it back at the bottom, in the center. And the time we can leave on, we can set the position of that, bring it down a notch. And then we can take the power. I'm going to turn the power off because it doesn't really serve me any purpose since it's not showing my battery voltage. And horizon, what is that? Position. I think that's just going to show you a horizontal line for a reference point to, yeah, it's not, I think it's just a horizontal line. It's not like a artificial horizon or anything. Just so you could see like a straight line for the craft. What might be good for that, actually, I'm just thinking, if you want to, you know, for racing, you can kind of get an idea. You can put like basically a little guideline so you know like where center is, or you can put like, oh, if I pitch a certain amount in my, I don't know what that does or why you'd want it, but you have it there and you can use it. So now if we do exit, it just has Tronage and the time now because I turned off the voltage. I'm ultimately going to turn all of this off because I have the OSD on my Betaflight, so I don't need the camera to be even doing an OSD. But I just wanted to show you that you can customize it and move stuff around, and I thought that was pretty cool. So I'm going to go in and turn everything off because I'm going to just use the Betaflight one. Exit. There we go. And there we have no OSD, so I will now flip my OSD back on with the Betaflight. And now I have my normal OSD. And that's pretty cool. Alright, so now let's test our field of view. Alright, so now we're going to do the field of view test with this camera. And let's get this started. So I'm going to get it situated here. Try to get it squared away. And if you want to see what the whole sheet looks like, it's right there. Okay. And let's get centered. Alright. And now we're going to slide forward until those lines turn straight. And I'm going crooked. I feel like right about here we're about centered. So we have 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, call that 55. And we have 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, let's call it about another 55 or so, because this is a little bit more, but over here is a little bit less. So we have 55 degrees in each direction, which would be 110 degrees field of view. And it probably is a little bit more than that because I feel like I can come back a little bit and it'd be like about here, might even be straight. So I would say 115 or so, give or take, would be my measurement on this. So really the only thing that's left is to throw this onto a craft and fly it around a little bit and see how it feels, because just because you measure a field of view to be a certain number doesn't necessarily mean that that's how it's going to feel. Because I don't know why. Lenses are kind of weird like that. Just because they have a certain field of view, some of them can be a little bit more fisheye feeling, so there's a lot more like warping in the middle. Some of them don't display that as much, so optics are kind of like a weird thing. So it really, I want to put it on a craft and see how it feels to fly, how my view feels to fly, and kind of get a feel for the quality of the picture that's getting sent back to my goggles. So basically, I'm going to throw it on one of my my quads, and we're just going to go fly. right, so before we talk about that footage that you just saw, let's just, keep in mind that, remember, this is DVR footage. DVR footage historically just looks bad. Not only does it look bad, but typically what you see in the goggle during the flight and what you see when you review the footage later on are almost two separate things. So that being said, let's talk about this. So now you see the video, in all honesty, when I was watching it in the goggles during the flight, I was very impressed. I did not see any of that interference that I saw when I rewatched it later on after coming back home. And it just seemed very crisp and flyable, and I was purposefully looking at the sun and then looking to the shade and stuff. And a lot of cameras will get really blown out one way or blown out the other way, and it makes you almost blind for a moment because it's either too bright or too dark to continue flying. And I felt that this camera was really able to keep up with those changes. I wasn't getting kind of blown out either direction when I was going from dark to really bright or bright to really dark. It was flyable the whole time. I didn't run into any kind of problems. And in all honesty, for the price, I am really impressed with this camera. Now, is this the best camera in the absolute whole wide world? Probably not. There's probably, some better ones, some name brand ones out there that are better, but they're also more expensive. And for the price of this camera, honestly, I don't see much difference. So I might even, just start using this camera as just my camera for all my builds, unless I have one laying around that I'm not using or whatever. But, personally speaking, it performed really good. And it's small, it's lightweight, it comes with that OSD joystick, which is really cool. And remember, everything you saw was flying with the stock out of the box settings. Like, I'm sure if I went in there with the OSD joystick and I adjusted some of the settings and tweaked it up a little bit, I probably could even squeeze a little bit more goodness out of it. But I said, you know what, I just want to run it as stock. We'll see how it goes, and then we can always take it from there. So you saw the footage just like I saw the footage. I will tell you, behind the goggles versus the DVR, it looked better. So take that into consideration when you're forming your opinion. But in reality, a good way to compare this would be to look at, my DVR footage of the camera and your DVR footage of whatever camera you're using to see if this is maybe a better camera for you. Keep in mind, though, that we're not looking at this footage for as far as how good of doing tricks I am and whatnot, because I really wasn't trying. I was really just trying to do lots of changes and lots of flips and lots of into the bright, into the ground, into the bright, into the ground, sunshine, shadow. So that's what we're really looking at, is just how flyable. The other thing that's going to be kind of weird is that, remember, for me, I've been flying my Night Eagle too. So for me, having color is probably why I thought it looked so incredible. I felt like almost in The Wizard of Oz, where he goes from black and white to color, because I've been flying a black and white camera pretty much nonstop for a good period of time. So having color was like, whoa, color. But it does have a black and white mode. I saw in the joystick you can put it into a black and white for day and night mode or whatever. So if I really feel like I'm getting distracted by the color, it's good to know I can put it in black and white and just feel at home in black and white. So overall, picture quality was great. Build quality of the camera itself is great. It felt it felt really sturdy in the hand. And for those reasons, the price, the quality, all wrapped into one, that's why it's going to be making it into the TBB quad. That's the Tronage budget build quad. Essentially, I'm trying to put together one of these budget builds, but actually put good parts into it that are quality stuff, and not just necessarily looking for the cheapest prices, because sometimes the cheapest prices end you up with stuff that you may want to end up, upgrading down the road. And the idea is to not want to upgrade down the road, but still save a ton of money. And that's why this camera is going into the budget build. Links for this product will be in the description below. It is an affiliate link. I am trying to maybe transition into doing this more of a full-time thing. It'd help me out if you click that link down below. And not even if you're making a purchase for this product, but if you're just going to be making any purchases on any of the websites that I do affiliate links with, For example, this is going to be on Amazon. If you're going to make a purchase on Amazon, maybe click that link through, and then that will help me out a little bit, help support the channel, gives me a little bit of a kickback, and doesn't cost you anything to do that, but it just helps support the channel. So if you're going to make a purchase on Amazon, click that link below, then make your purchase. Simple as that. And I appreciate if you choose to do that. It really helps me out. It helps out the channel. Helps me bring great content to you guys. So, as always, my name is Tronage. Fly strong.